Hello, I'm Catalina Gillies, and thank you for joining us on this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. An announcement many Thunder Bay residents have been waiting for is set to take place on November 8th. The United States will finally be opening the border for land travel to Canadians after being virtually closed since March of 2020. Danielle Bain reports.
It's been 2 months since Canada opened its land border to non-essential U.S. travelers, and next month Canada can finally expect the same. Although there are still many questions surrounding the U.S. border reopening, Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu says this is something many Canadians have been waiting for a long time.
There are many people that have an integrated life with other Americans, with family members, and other reasons that they want to go to the United States. So obviously, there are some details that are unfolding as we speak, but I think the relationship between the United States and Canada is a strong one, and obviously, this is an important step.
Some Thunder Bay residents we spoke to have differing opinions when it comes to the border reopening.
I've been waiting for the border to open for a long time. I have one son in Denver, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. It's been 1.5 years. I only see him on Skype. My grandson's there as well.
I actually prefer that they keep the border closed for a little bit longer until everyone's vaccinated.
Another local resident says he's open to the idea of traveling again, but wanted to be cautious.
Well, not this year, probably in the spring, later on, when it gets warmer, maybe go down to the south somewhere, but not immediately.
Officials at Ryden's Border Store and Grand Portage Lodge and Casino are all welcoming the opening of the border to Canadian travelers. The U.S. will not require a negative COVID test upon entering the country, but will require proof of vaccination. However, Canada does require a negative PCR test to re-enter the country, which can cost over $100 to get in the U.S. Hajdu would not reveal whether or not her government has plans to adjust their policies to make it easier and cheaper for Canadians to travel south.
To be determined, and will continue to rely on the health officials to give us their best possible advice to reach that goal of ensuring that we're doing our absolute level best to reduce and prevent importations.
It's not clear just yet whether or not the AstraZeneca vaccine or mixed-dose vaccines will be accepted as a verified vaccine status at U.S. land borders. But the American Center for Disease Control and Prevention will be working on these guidelines heading into November. Danielle Bain, TBT News.
It's a well-known fact that there has been a financial impact on businesses and organizations everywhere as a result of COVID-19. But the financial impact on hospital is not so well known. It's one of the reasons why the Ontario government is providing relief to hospitals across the province, including several in the Kenora-Rainy River area. Adam Riley has the details.
On Tuesday, the province announced $1.2 million for the Dryden Regional Health Centre, which will be used to help the facility cover costs incurred due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Kenora-Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford, a former nurse, says not many people are aware of the financial impacts COVID-19 has had on hospitals.
They're real. They're very real, frankly. And that's why our government created a fund to the tune of $1.2 billion to help alleviate the financial strains, particularly those felt by small, rural, and medium-sized hospitals.
The funding model for hospitals relies on procedures performed. The hospital has provided money for surgeries in advance. However, COVID has caused many procedures to be postponed. Meanwhile, costs persist.
This is money to ensure that Dryden can pay its bills and does not have debt, is really what it's about. So there's not a specific allocation of something that this money is going to. It's going to ensure that this hospital, our whole healthcare organization, is financially stable organization.
Armstrong Ross says there hasn't been too much of a backlog of procedures built up at DRHC, but costs for testing centers and other related projects remain. As well, a further $281,000 was announced for infrastructure at the hospital, including a replacement medical air system and flooring upgrades in the central sterilization and reprocessing department. Rickford's tour then continued to Fort Frances, where Riverside Healthcare, which operates several medical facilities in the Rainy River District, including the La Vérendrye Hospital, received $5.5 million in similar funding to Dryden. On Thursday, Rickford then announced even more healthcare dollars in Kenora. However, he notes that hospital didn't qualify for some of the funding that Dryden and Fort Frances received.
The Lake of the Woods Hospital is categorically a different kind of facility, and the emphasis there is on health infrastructure renewal. So they're actually getting a larger allocation from that fund. They've got a couple of important projects on the books right now.
The $477,000 is expected to be used to improve space in the hospital's obstetrics unit. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Incidents of harassment of hospital staff in the Kenora area are on the rise, which has prompted officials with the Lake of the Woods District Hospital to make a public plea for compassion.
I would say healthcare workers, certainly across the country, this is being documented all across our nation. But for our hospital, it's actually strikingly a difference from what we're used to experiencing.
Reset says between the months of June and August of this year, there have been 30 incidents of verbal harassment and 15 physical assaults. During the same time period in 2020, there were 20 and 12 incidents respectively, and it's beginning to take a toll on staff. He notes some staff have switched from full-time to casual or transferred departments altogether as a result. Some incidents he attributes to mental health and addiction issues, but others are there as a result of COVID denial or opposition to anti-COVID measures. Reset says while security or a call to police is usually enough, he notes there are other options the hospital can employ.
We could ban people from service if we felt that there was no way that we could control their behavior when they come here. So we have different things that we can do up to that. Or we could have a behavioral agreement with them in terms of, understanding that there will be consequences. We're asking for their cooperation, not to do this or that.
Reset is asking anyone who plans to come to the hospital seeking services or as a visitor to be respectful of staff and the procedures at the facility. The company behind a major mining project near Marathon hosted a public information session in Thunder Bay on Thursday. Generation Mining is hoping to begin construction next year on an open pit mine for platinum, palladium, and copper. Jonathan Wilson reports.
More than 100 people turned out to the Victoria Inn to learn more about the Platinum Group metals mine being built by Generation Mining. Many of the attendees are people who either want to become a local supplier to the big project or get jobs during the construction phase or the eventual mining at the operation. Chief Operating Officer Drew Anwell says he was pleased with the big turnout and told the crowd that things are ready to move into high gear.
The life of the mine is a little over 13 years, and it'll be an open pit operation. Again, we've got a lot of exploration potential there as well, but we'll bite off what we can chew right now and get this mine up and running as soon as we can. So the hope is we can be producing metal in 2024.
The future mine site is located just 10 kilometers from Marathon. Anwell says the company has been working closely with town officials and the Pick River First Nation, and they're now in the pre-construction phase, finalizing their environmental permitting and getting ready to break ground on the rich deposit, which contains palladium, copper, and platinum, along with some gold and silver.
We're in the pre-construction phase of the project. We finished the feasibility study earlier this year, which was pretty robust. And we're now just doing the engineering, the environmental assessment process, and just getting ready to start construction.
It's a large project that we're quite excited about.
John Mason with the Thunder Bay CEDC helped host this open house. He says it's all about sharing information and providing updates on timelines so people can get on board with this project, which will create over 1,000 construction jobs and around 300 mining jobs once it's complete.
This is a real great regional opportunity in terms of the building of this copper palladium mine. We do believe this is going to be a great stimulant for workforce development as well as opportunity for mine service and supply for construction and operations for the North Shore, for the Indigenous communities that are there, Marathon, but also for Thunder Bay and the region because it's such a massive project.
Thunder Bay is the hub community for us. Certainly a lot of the employment will come from Marathon and those regions on the North Shore, but from a supply and industrial sourcing, Thunder Bay is certainly a target area for us.
Anwell says all the permits should be in place by late 2022. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
The town of Manitouwadge is celebrating the arrival of new physicians after the local hospital was faced with a major doctor shortage last month. Santé Manitouwadge Health recently had both of their full-time doctors retire, and with just weeks before the hospital saw its doctor staffing hit zero, one of their locums signed on full-time. Santé Manitouwadge Health has now 2 full-time physicians who cover long-term care, the emergency room, and as well as a private clinic. Hospital CEO Debbie Hardy says the recruiting process can be stressful at times with a community of 2,000, including many elderly people needing care.
Sometimes we're waiting for the Ministry of Health to sign the contracts with the physicians, so we're not really sure where the process is. And as much as we like to think they're signing on, until that process is complete, there's no guarantees. So yeah, we've had a couple sleepless nights hoping that things would work out, and thankfully they've worked out.
Hardy says they are still looking to recruit one more full-time doctor, and she's glad that job fairs have returned so they can showcase the benefits of working in Manitouwadge. A transport truck driver is facing a charge of dangerous driving after his tractor trailer left the road and burst into flames on Highway 17A near Kenora. These dramatic images were posted on the Skilled Truckers Canada Facebook page. The transport struck a rock cut around 2 o'clock Tuesday morning, with the tractor unit becoming engulfed in flames. The driver and one other occupant of the truck escaped safely, according to Kenora OPP. Fortunately, no other vehicles were involved. The OPP laid a charge of dangerous operation of a motor vehicle against the driver of the rig. The incident closed Highway 17A between Airport Road and Jones Road, and the highway reopened at around 10 o'clock later that morning. And when we come back, the Treaty 3 Police Service welcomes some new members and grants a wish to one of the residents they serve. A special ceremony in Kenora this past week recognized dedication, achievement, and expansion of the Treaty 3 Police Service. The Indigenous Police Force serves in 23 communities within the Treaty 3 region. The welcoming event also served as an opportunity to support a young boy battling cancer to fulfill his dream. Adam Riley reports.
With a complement of 89 officers, the Treaty 3 Police Service continues to grow. Police Chief Kai Liu says in addition to the swearing in of 2 new constables and promotions within the organization, Treaty 3 Police are now branching out with special constables.
It's a new position for us in that they've been hired, or the position's been created to create a support mechanism to our officers on the front lines. And so today we were able to welcome 2 new special constables.
Lou adds Treaty 3 Police is continuing the conversation with both the federal and provincial governments to expand the force to address the needs of the communities they serve. However, Tuesday's ceremony also served as a chance for the service's youngest member, 12-year-old Junior Chief of Police Dion Green, to participate in his new role, a role he still remains a little speechless over.
How does it feel to kind of have your own actual personalized badge that you've
cool. No.
For much of his life, Green has battled cancer. At age 2, he was diagnosed and beat rhabdomyosarcoma cancer. Then at age 6, he was diagnosed and overcame leukemia. And last year, he was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, a form of bone cancer. His mother, Rachel, says several organizations came forward to help make Dion's dreams come true, including a chance to speak with his hockey idol, Sidney Crosby. But she says this gesture by Treaty 3 Police fulfills her son's dream.
Dion has always wanted to be a police officer. Ever since he was a baby, he used to buy the toy guns and stuff from Dollarama. He always said he wanted to be a police officer, just like Papa Gary. And some of you know my grandfather, Joseph Thunderbrook. He was also a police officer back in the 70s, I believe, Whitefish Bay's first constable.
Our motto is policing the community with our people, and Deanne, or Chief Green, is a member of our community from Shoal Lake 39, and it's a real honor to have him as my partner.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
With Prime Minister Justin Trudeau scheduled to announce his new federal cabinet on October 26, Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu is waiting patiently to see where she'll end up next. Hajdu has been in cabinet for 6 years, starting out as the Minister of the Status of Women in 2015. She was promoted to Minister of Labor in 2017, and then in November 2019, just before the pandemic hit, she was promoted again to Minister of Health. As for whether she keeps that role or moves on, Hajdu says she trusts Trudeau to make the right decisions.
I think what that demonstrates to the Prime Minister, hopefully, is that I'm flexible and I'm also interested in a lot of different kinds of public policy development.
There's been some debate about whether Trudeau should keep the same Minister of Health until the pandemic is over. Hajdu says she'll do whatever is asked of her, but says there's no shortage of qualified people to choose from if she were to be moved.
Committee where ministers from all the relevant files came together to really look at the decisions we were making and try to make the absolute best ones we could using a variety of different perspectives. So there are a lot of people within our own government that have had quite extensive experience with COVID-19.
Hajdu adds there's still other work to do as a government, and whatever cabinet post she receives, she plans to continue being a strong voice for Northwestern Ontario. The Chief and Council of the Gull Bay First Nation are looking to recoup around $100,000 in court costs from a legal challenge of the band's decision to delay its election. Ottawa passed legislation this year allowing First Nations to delay voting during the pandemic, but some Gull Bay members still took the matter to court and now have apparently abandoned their challenge. The next Gull Bay election is scheduled to go ahead on November 20th. The owner of a Terrace Bay pulp and paper mill has been fined for workplace safety violations over a 2019 incident that injured a worker. The worker became caught between 2 rotating rolls on the machine before a coworker was able to hit an emergency stop and free them. Justice of the Peace Bernard Caron found the company failed to properly equip the machine with safeguards to prevent the worker's injuries. Ontario's Ministry of Labour fined mill operator AV Terrace Bay Incorporated $80,000, along with a 25% victim surcharge over the incident. The Community Economic Development Commission and Tourism Thunder Bay have provided the Silver Islet General Store with $48,000 from the Municipal Accommodation Tax Fund. City Tourism Manager Paul Pepe says they chose Silver Islet Store to receive hotel tax funding because it combines cultural, culinary, and environmentally stable elements, along with being a big draw to support tourism partners in Thunder Bay. With the nearby Sleeping Giant Park seeing around 75,000 visitors per year, the Silver Islet Store is an added attraction for domestic, U.S., and international travelers alike. Store owners Jeff and Sandy Korkala says they greatly appreciate the financial support, which will help them complete a major restoration of the 150-year-old store, including new solar panels and other improvements to the iconic landmark. Coming up after the break, a local raptor rescue expands to help injured birds of prey. Thunderbird Raptor Rescue has made some progress securing a new space. Owner Jen Salo has been rehabilitating birds out of prey out of her home for years. And with the increasing number of calls she's getting, she's close to finding a facility big enough to take her rescue to the next level. Danielle Bain reports.
Jen Salo created Thunderbird Raptor Rescue for one purpose: to rehabilitate injured birds of prey and release them back into the wild. Right now, she has been experiencing a huge number of calls from all around northwestern Ontario and thinks it's because of one main reason.
We are at the beginning of migration season, and it's also hunting season, so we're seeing lots of birds that get exposed to lead from gut piles and from, like partridge that have been shot but got away, that kind of thing. When they're not feeling good, that's when the injuries happen.
Right now, Salo has 4 different birds that she's caring for: 2 eagles, a peregrine falcon, and a broadwing hawk. It might seem like a low number, but the rehabilitative space required for these birds to thrive is large. Over the last 3 years, Salo has been working towards securing some space at Chippewa Park, which she says will be hugely beneficial for these birds.
I have limited space for the larger birds as it is, so having that space will help me be able to answer more calls, will give me an opportunity to do better with the whole recovery process of having those flight pens for building muscle at the end stage before release.
Salo hopes to secure that space within the next few months after finishing paperwork with the city, and once she does, her next focus will be on fundraising so that she can take in as many birds as possible. Danielle Bain, TBT News.
The Nuclear Waste Management Organization's Mobile Learn More Center made a stop in Thunder Bay to have conversations with the community about nuclear waste storage. The mobile unit has traveled over 1,500 kilometers across the Northwest to share Canada's plans to handle its used nuclear fuel. The NWMO is considering 2 locations, one near Ignace and another near Lake Huron. This unit includes multimedia, interactive, and static exhibits that detail plans for a Jeep geologic repository. The NWMO says the project will only proceed in an area with informed and willing hosts, including nearby Indigenous communities. Engagement Associate Garrett Ugray says there are still many steps to go before a final decision is made.
The timeline right now is to have a site selected with informed and willing host communities by the end of 2023. After that, there would be a 10-year regulatory approval phase, which is when we apply for our license to construct.
Kiiwetinoong MPP Sol Mamakwa pressed the Ford government at Queen's Park earlier this month to resolve a dispute with Optometrist. Ontario eye doctors stopped offering provincially insured services like eye exams in September, saying OHIP rates cover only about half of their costs. They have refused to rejoin mediation with the province's current offer of an 8.5% increase and $39 million one-time payment. In question period October 7th, Mamakwa said the province needed to come to a fair deal with the group, while Health Minister Christine Elliott says it was up to the workers to come back to the table.
And Kiiwetinoong doctors have shared with me with their concerns about the high incidence of eye disease and extra care needed in the region. People in Kiiwetinoong are among the sickest in Canada. Elders and seniors right across the north need regular eye care exams because of the diseases they have.
We recognize that Indigenous children across Ontario need access to eye care. They're back in school. Many of them may require glasses, for example. Well, that's why we're asking the optometrists to please come back to the mediation table. You can't negotiate if there's only one party there.
And that wraps up this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.